Renee, can you try to, have Madden?
Attractive financing from that.
Sort of switch to Zoom.
There is a call-in number. But Matt, some of them call-in numbers, they call that.
Are we okay to work with public comment on consent items? Okay, well, we're still trying to let, looks like let Matt in. Matt, did you make it on?
Good morning, everyone. Matt's here. Hopefully you can hear me.
We would like to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for being patient with technical difficulties. Katarina, come on the call roll.
Anna Barbieri. Clark Bowen.
Clark,
Esty.
and you here?
Clark Bowen's here, sorry.
Emily Gray.
Here.
Greg Shelton. Jared Henderson.
I'm
Lori
on.
String.
There's not.
Is that Jared? Okay. Lori Stringham.
I'm here.
Liz Brunhart. Here. Lindsay Longton.
Here.
Marcy Houseman. Matt Bolton.
Here. Good morning.
Nick Griffith.
Yes.
Nicole Handy. Here. Terry George.
Here.
Tessa Stitzer. Zach Jacob.
Here.
Thank you.
Did you get Clark is here?
Yes, you did. Thank you. All right, we would now like to open the meeting for public comment and members of the public wishing to comment before this board. Now is the time. All right, seeing there is no public comment, we'd like to close public comment. We'd like to have as many people here for these items on the agenda, so we're going to move the agenda out of order. So we're going to address items 3.7 and 3.8 now. For those of you who are following along in your packet, we're going to be going to page 40. And just to start this off, Rachel is going to kind of go into this in more detail. This is the update of the withdrawal agreement with Harriman and the draft of the interlocal agreement with Harriman. I know a lot of us had a chance to talk to Evan about this. Just as an introduction, this agreement was made through a lot of work. I obviously wasn't there in Harriman, but I met him on their side as well. I know Evan and Helen and Rachel have put in countless hours. We also created a working group to make sure that we were looking after all interests of the district and all geographical areas in the district. I sat on that working group for Holiday, Anna Barbieri from Taylorsville, Greg Shelton from White City, Nick Griffiths from Immigration. Oh, and Lori Stringham for Salt Lake County. So all of us have sat on that working group and met frequently throughout the summer to to come up with this agreement. It has, not to say it's been a labor of love, but it's been a labor. It's been a labor, so we're gonna have, Rachel go over that, now.
Great. So yeah, to begin, I wanted to also just give a little bit of an introduction, and address some thoughts and concerns that I've kind of been hearing from folks. Like Emily just said, this agreement has been a product of extensive and sometimes difficult negotiations. I'd say what it really came down to at the end of the day was a debate, not so much about whether Herman could or should leave, because I think that we kind of, understood that was what was going to happen. But it was, the disagreement really turned on what assets that Herman could take with them. And I think that's where we spent most of our time in discussions. So this agreement reflects a practical resolution to Herman's withdrawal. And not necessarily a concession that Herman owns a proportional share of district assets or was legally entitled to, everything that it might have requested. Our district's position throughout this process has been that municipalities do not hold a proportional ownership interest in district assets. And we did preserve that position expressly in the agreement. There's a clause there that states that. So the transfers that we negotiated to Herman in this agreement are not in recognition of an ownership or equity interest per se. And the agreement also has Herman releasing any further asset related claims. So we can just kind of put this to bed and move on, which is one of the biggest benefits of this agreement. So while we felt strongly about that legal position, we had to evaluate all of this in consideration of the environment that this withdrawal was occurring. Herman was able to obtain new legislation, creating a whole new withdrawal process. There was significant potential for continued legislative pressure. Any even thoughts of litigating the issue to try to figure out where the right line is would have involved additional substantial expense and delay and uncertainty and disruption to our ability to perform the services we needed to be focusing on without any sort of guarantee that we'd get a better result. So all that is to say that this negotiated agreement is what our small group at least considered to be a resolution that we could live with, and that was best protective of the district, given all the, like I said, the legal pressures we just discussed. Protecting our remaining communities, we need to be focusing on our remaining communities and providing good service there and not be fighting legal battles on the side. So this agreement gives Herman a defined and limited package, but also gives us and everyone else involved finality. Herman doesn't receive cash or fund balances, reserves, real property, or a set percentage of assets. As I'll get into it as I go through the agreement, but there is a transfer of the containers and the carts and the some trucks. And that transfer is capped and subject to certain, operational protections on our end to protect our remaining fleet and our needs. And finally, I want to make a note that we see this agreement as only expressly being specific to Herman's withdrawal and not establishing precedent for any others. Every future, any withdrawal ever is going to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis under the own facts and circumstances and the applicable law at the time. And more to that point of the law, we see ourselves as perhaps trying to get back into that legislation and clarifying some of the ambiguities that we saw and had to deal with. So in the future, any request for this sort is going to be analyzed except on a case-by-case basis. So with that said, that's sort of big things out in front. I'm gonna walk through the agreement and point out kind of the major points so that you know how this is going to go. Actually, one more overarching point before we move on. We, as a small group, got to this point where we felt like we're good with the language just as of like the end of last week. So we had enough time to get it here on the agenda, and I know that Evan has had one-on-one, and Emily's had some one-on-one conversations with many of you. We wanted you guys to have the opportunity to vote on it today if everyone feels that they're ready, but it is a bit of a short turnaround. So if anyone feels like you haven't had enough time to sit with this, think about it, have your questions answered, of course, we'll spend time doing that today as well. We can table the vote, but just to note that if we do that, we would be setting up a special meeting sometime in the next couple of weeks to come back to this question. Rather than, we can't wait all the way till the next month is basically what I'm getting at. Assuming that we're proceeding with this, which is the expectation that we have operationally, Evan's team needs to be able to start actually working on this, and we need to have enough time to implement the transition. So we don't want to wait too long. And our understanding is that this will be on Harriman's agenda. Is it next week?
September 9th.
September 9th, right? How many weeks that is. Okay. So that said, I'm just going to scroll down. Let's see. So section 2 at the bottom there. Oh, okay, yeah. So, sorry, back up to the recitals. In recital A, it states what kind of organization we are. We provide these services on a fee-for-service basis, operate through an enterprise fund supported by customer service fees. We do not impose any property tax, and it lists the communities that we serve. That's been an important point for us because, again, we feel like the communities, it's the residents who paid and they have gotten the service that they paid for, the fee-for-service concept, rather than any sort of, the cities aren't buying into this organization. Okay, I could go into all that. I'm not going to have a whole legal discussion on how that works. Anyway, so back down to section 2, the agreement and effective, the withdrawal effective dates. So basically this agreement is just saying we mutually agreeing to the fact that Harriman is withdrawing. And the way the law works is it becomes legally effective upon the lieutenant governor issuing a certificate of withdrawal. So we'll sign this agreement, Harriman signs this agreement. As soon as it's signed by both parties, Harriman has to send a notice to the lieutenant governor's office with a final local entity plat, which is the map, basically, that they're saying that this is the area that's being withdrawn from the district. And then the lieutenant governor's office issues a certification. And in my experience, that happens usually pretty quickly. They're usually on top of that. It usually only takes a couple weeks. And so that, the way the statute's written, like that's the effective date. We don't really get to pick a different effective date. So our anticipation is that that process will happen pretty quickly. But therefore, going down to section 4, we have negotiated a continued service transition until the end of October 31st as the actual transition date. So regardless of when the lieutenant governor certifies it as being official, we are negotiating that we will continue service until through October 31st, and so that there will be a formal transition. The reason we chose that date is it makes sense on our side to have the services end at the end of a month for our billing purposes, and that will produce a really clean transition forward for us. Let's see. The assurances section says that we will continue to provide service without degradation of service prior to that transition date. So we pointed out a few practical issues there. If a new home comes online in that weird little window, transition date will still give them a new can and all that. We'll do repairs and maintenance. However, we are probably not going to be accepting requests for new subscription-based services during that window because that really doesn't make sense for anyone. So that's the only quote unquote degradation of service that might occur. Final billings and collections. We reserve the right obviously to send out final bills and collect. And in cases of non-payment, we are still authorized to use any of our regular collection methods, including placing a lien for past due services against the property. This is how we do our annual certifications on the property tax rolls for those that do not pay in a timely manner. This is just saying that we will continue to be able to do that if anyone doesn't pay during this window. Section 6 is the negotiated asset transfer. Again, we've agreed that this is not recognition of any sort of proportional ownership or equity interest. The statute does talk in terms of being able to transfer assets in the case of withdrawal on the basis of like necessity of the parties. And so this is more in line with that than considering it as being you just get a percentage because you were a member. So what we, through much negotiation, settled on was a transfer of side load collection trucks having an aggregate appraised retail value reasonably approximating $825,000. This section contains methods of how we select an appraiser. We will mutually select and split the costs of the appraiser to come in and appraise the trucks. Section C has identification of eligible trucks, and this is a process that we agreed to wherein Evan's team will identify a pool of trucks that are allowed to be considered as part of the transfer. It has a tiered formula so that they get a mix of trucks in that pool of different ages. And so we were not allowed to just give them all the lowest and the worst trucks in the pile, but at the same time, they can't just take all the best and the newest either. So it's got a span. And so once we have that pool put together, the appraisal occurs, and the appraiser will assign a retail value to all of those trucks after consideration of taking out some of the equipment that we have inside the trucks that will remain on our property. And then once we have values on all of the trucks within the pool, the city of Harriman has the ability to go through and basically pick and choose which trucks they want. That gets as close as possible to that target transfer value that I identified. And recognizing that it would be a near miracle and possibility to be able to come up with an exact dollar amount that matches that. We negotiated this language to say that they have to pick trucks that come closest to that value as possible. And if they can't, if it's within 3%, either up, above or below, we're calling it like that's good enough. And there will be no further true up, so to speak. If we can't find any combination that falls within that 3% window or down of the target value, then Evan has the ability to add more trucks into the pool and to try to get some more options that would create a workable combination. If despite all of our efforts, we just simply cannot get a combination that is within that 3%, we have the option of agreeing to a transfer that's, a little bit above or below that. That would also include a dollar value true up, but only to the extent that it was above or below that 3%. That 3% window would stay. But if it's say it goes up 4%, then either they pay us an additional that additional 1%, or we pay them an additional 1% to get within that window. Yes, we did have a limit as well due to our operational needs that under no circumstances can they take more than 6 trucks. That was important to us because we obviously need trucks to be continuing to do our service to our communities. And that's the number that our team settled on as being workable. Okay. Let's see, we say that the transfer of trucks will fully satisfy the requirements of this agreement. Let me see. The transfer of title and possession just talks about, we're transferring them as is, whereas without any representation or warranty. We will remove our Wolford labels from the trucks, and they will just take them as is and then become responsible for registration, licensing, insurance on all that. Let's see. Okay, all the rest of this I'm gonna just skip over. It's just more or less factuating those terms. So then we get to section 8, the transfer of garbage and recycling carts. As part of our negotiations, we agreed to basically leave the residential carts where they are. Residents can keep their garbage and recycling carts. Let's see, this is only the 90 to 96 gallon carts issued for regular service. It does not include any other larger containers that we in the city. Let's see. I'm gonna skip down. These are also transferred as is, no warranty. The important section is removal of Wolford identification. Within 180 days after the transition date, the city shall ensure that all of our names are covered on the cards. What our understanding is that they have a plan to place a sticker on the top of every cart that completely obscures our information and states the new company and contact information for that company. And to the extent that our carts have logos on the sides, we negotiated that that was still important for us for those to be removed. And they can remove those in either by also doing stickers or even just by spray painting over them. So it, you know, people with eyeballs could still see what was said under the spray paint, but it would be a clear indication that that is no longer the party that owns this. We don't want anyone contacting us for issues. I'm sure that we'll still get that to some extent just because people are used to us being a service provider. But we don't want it being basically advertised that this is our cards and our issues, or if there are any service issues that they should contact us. Okay, then number 9, retention of remaining assets and liabilities. This again just goes into that point of everything else is that we haven't mentioned is not being transferred. Assets, liabilities, and employees. 10 is a full satisfaction and release of asset claims. Meaning, like I said before, this is it. We're putting it to bed. This is what everyone gets. We're getting into more boilerplate stuff. Number 12, the customer data transfer requires within 30 days that we put together the data package necessary that they need that has the customer names, service addresses, all of our basically computer data on all the residents, so that they know who they're serving. Let's see, customer communications is the responsibility of the city to notify customers of the transition, and that's on them to make sure that they adequately notify their customers of the transition. And we will reasonably cooperate, of course, but the primary obligation is on them to be the notifier. And I'm certain that we will continue getting calls for a long time, but we'll just transfer them to the city. Termination of statutory financial restrictions. This is a technicality, but that law that the bill that got passed during this legislative session had a clause in there that basically restricted us from incurring any new debt, issuing bonds, et cetera, after a city asks to leave. Like basically they put a freeze on us from conducting any business like that until we get this withdrawal resolved. And so this is just expressly stating that ban is lifted as soon as this agreement is passed. Okay, now we're getting really into boilerplate, the release, the responsibility for accident emissions. Number 17 is important, continuing independent contracts. We do have some independent service contracts in Harriman to serve private roads. Those are private contract-based agreements. Those are private roads, and we have a private contract with those areas. This withdrawal does not affect those private contracts that we may have. And so we will continue servicing those up and until we, make a different arrangement, but we can't cancel those contracts through this process. And whether we decide to continue servicing those areas or let those go, that will be a operational conversation of our team. I think that's basically it. We have the whole section here about the sections to comply with the Interlocal Cooperation Act. Everything else is legal boilerplate, I believe. Sure, yep, that's it. So that's the agreement we came down to, and what our intention is, if there's any discussion now, we'll take that. Then our next agenda item is the actual approval. So people, if someone feels prepared to make a vote, you can make a motion in a second, and then at that point, we'll also open it up for, one last call for discussion on the motion. So, yeah.
Yes,
Thank you,
this
Richard.
is-
I may have missed
Oh,
out.
sorry,
There was
go
a
ahead.
lot.
No, absolutely. Absolutely good. So I just wanted to point out a few items. So, and for a benchmark for consideration, the cost of a new side load truck these days well exceeds $400,000. So 2 brand new trucks, whether it's diesel or even CNG, which are more expensive, would exceed the $825,000 item that has been identified in this agreement. Currently, we have 56 side loads as part of our fleets that we try to maintain when we replace new trucks. And we ultimately sell those remaining items off. We've done an analysis. We've identified that moving forward, we will need a minimum of 50 trucks. Hence the determination of the 6 trucks maximum as part of this agreement. Another item that I would point out is that we've done some rather robust internal financial analyses, and we also had a third-party financial impact analysis performed, which does show a slight deficit as it pertains to the loss of revenue and the realizable reduction in expenses. But in both studies, in both scenarios, especially with all of the initiatives we're taking, the PGIs and cost savings, it does show and demonstrate we can readily absorb this reduction in service and revenues. That does not indicate any sort of immediate nor short-term need to adjust or raise our base services rates. So things are looking positive from that perspective. As Rachel mentioned, this has been a product of my entire first year here with the organization. My 1-year anniversary is actually August 25th. So what's interesting that it's tomorrow at this point. Myself and the team and Rachel and Chair Gray and many other of our board members have spent an exorbitant amount of time on this agreement. And although it's not a best case scenario, it does appear to satisfy both parties' collective and interest. And it looks like we have a mutual understanding of this. And from my perspective, it's best that we just move on and continue to evaluate, enhance, and optimize our services, and hopefully put this behind us as soon as possible. That way we can focus on some of the larger, more important initiatives to better service and continue the services we provide to our remaining partner cities and the customers throughout Salt Lake.
Thank you. So now I'd like to open it up for discussion. It sounded like there was somebody online. Like to.
Yeah. This is Matt from Cottonwood Heights. As someone who was not part of that working group, but who has read this agreement and also witnessed and watched the process at the legislature and all that has taken place thus far, I just want to commend our team for doing the amazing work that they've done and the time they've put in. And I do want to also echo Evan's sentiment that I believe it's best for the districts and our best interest to take this agreement, to approve it today, and to move forward. Those are my comments. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. Can we turn that up? Volume. You have a volume between you to that control it. It's. Okay, we'll keep going while we work on that. Any other comments that people would like to make?
I feel somewhat unclear about in the moving forward process, if other entities want to withdraw from our district, how it said case by case basis and that this will be, I'm just worried about again.
So I think the thing to clarify is this agreement, is a negotiated settlement. It's not something that, is dictated by law. And so if another entity were to move forward, this wouldn't be seen as the precedent for how to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And Rachel was very clear to make that explicit in the language.
Yeah,
Did that answer your question?
yes, thanks.
That was the concern that I had too, is, okay, somebody's now watching this, you know, I don't wanna point fingers at anybody, so I'll just pick up something on here, say curtains. Let's just say currents, for example, is watching this, going, gosh, I wonder if we should do this too, let's watch and see how this plays out. And they put one, you know, they end up looking at this going, wow, everything's coming out smelling kind of rosy, and this should be coming out smelling a little less than rosy. Maybe we wanna look at this and see what we can get. And so that's the concern that I had. I know legally we're not setting a precedent, but practically we're kind of, you know, opening the kimono a little bit and saying this is kind of how this works. So that's kind of the.
I can speak to that, but if anyone on the team wants to speak to that as well, that is definitely something that was discussed a lot at length in the working group. I think we all saw that. For this immediate situation, we felt like given the political environment that we're working in, we needed to resolve this fairly immediately. And our hope is, because there was some ambiguity between the way we understand our position and the way Harriman understood our position, our hope is to work with the legislature very soon so that we can clarify things so that it will not be a problem.
Because there's gonna be a tipping point. Right?
Agreed.
If turns and then, if another, with Mill Creek, you know, it's fun. Like, I'm big couple who are in the larger areas, right? If they start withdrawing, there's a tipping point where this isn't, you can't keep doing this and still have a business.
Agreed. And I would say that I don't think that would be our intent.
Well, I'm sure, yeah, and I don't want to get there, I think that's what I'm saying is I don't want the first domino that's falling here to be something that's going to lead to the dissolution of this, and if it does, how do we navigate, right?
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, you're right, dealing with legislation is gonna be a whole different. And the only other thing I was gonna say is I've been married 28 years. This is my first divorce agreement, and who gets visitation rights for the trucks on the? We go visit, say hi, maybe take them to the zoo or something.
I would just add that we were kind of put in this position, like, we don't get the choice of saying, we don't want to set any precedent at all, so we're just not gonna allow this, like,
Right.
it was happening, you know, and that's the hard thing, is like to be told, like, you absolutely have to let cities leave. And that was a very clear directive of the legislature, that they don't feel like cities should be not allowed to leave if they don't want to. So in that context, like, we had to do it somehow, and like, no matter what you do, yeah, you're looking at it as being precedential. But yeah, so we're definitely preserving our ability to argue all of our legal points next time if anyone wants to come out. But the bigger thing, I think, to remember, and I think it's our bigger focus, as Evan can speak to, is a renewed effort of making sure that everyone who remains sees the value of the organization and is really happy. And I think we've done a lot in that regards. And that's going to be our strongest key here, is just continue to be providing really good service and make it so that no one would ever even want to leave, because we're not going to get anything better elsewhere. So I think that's one of the main goals. But
So I would say it's all of the concerns, we see where you're coming from, but we really felt like being able to provide the best service. And even as we go through the meeting today and talk about some of the future initiatives that we're looking at, we can see that that's really the direction that the district wants to go. And hopefully putting this to bed, and then working on a plan to clarify the law in the future and not only help us provide the best service, but also make sure that we're clear on the legal position going forward.
I want to just echo the appreciation, because I know this has been countless hours for board members and staff and legal, but just how much we appreciate, you know, that we're able to make this transition without having to raise rates, without having to, you know, shrink staff and so on. Thank you.
And
I echo that.
yeah, I know Amy has worked really hard to protect the staff in all this, which is not an insignificant task. And I appreciate that he cares that much about our staff, and that is just something that's been really impressive through all these conversations that he's brought up repeatedly, that I hope the staff knows how much that he's worked on this with this very difficult situation as well. So it's very admirable. Any other comments?
Motion?
Yeah. we'll take a-
Motion to adopt resolution 4448, approving the interlocal agreement, with the terms of withdrawal from Harriman City. Harriman City.
Matt Holton, second.
So I've got a motion and a second. Do we have any final comments, discussion on the motion? All right, let's do a roll call vote.
WFWRD. Clark Bullen,
Clark, you're on mute.
Yay. Yay.
Emily,
Dr. Bates, yes.
Greg Shelton,
Yeah.
Jared Henderson,
Abstain.
Lori Stringham,
Lori's muted.
Lori,
Still muted.
Lori, you're muted. Let's keep going. We're back.
Elise Brunhart,
Yes.
Lindsay Longton,
Yay.
Marcy Hausman, Matt Holton,
Yes.
Nick Griffith,
Affirmative with comment to thank the staff and effort to protect the district's long-term viability and its best interests.
Nicole Handy,
Yes.
Terry George,
Yes.
Tessa Stitzer, Zach Jacob,
Aye.
Lori Stringham,
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. And we will go back to regular agenda. I just want to thank everybody. I know this has been a difficult process and decision. And once again, the work of the staff has been phenomenal on this. Right. Well, just you wait, we're gonna get a lot to talk about. So let's go back to the consent items. We need to approve the minutes from the July meeting. Can you get a motion for that?
I move we approve those minutes.
Second.
There's a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
who was the second?
Aye.
With terms that was Terry. Yeah. All right, moving on to the business items, the general manager report, from Evan.
Yes, thank you. I'll be very brief today, just with some verbal updates, and next month, I'm kind of transitioning between PGI updates and formal presentations, and in an effort to get through all the other meeting content, so a couple brief updates for the group today. We recently initiated a 5-star Google review campaign. Historically, we did have the best ratings on Google. As of July 13th, we had a total of 185 reviews. with an unfavorable score of 2.4 stars out of 5 on Google. So we recently initiated kind of a goal and a kind of a what's the right word? What do we call it?
Challenge.
A challenge, 5-star Google review challenge. And so since that time, which this only started very early August, we have gained from our July benchmark 100 reviews. So we're now at 285 reviews, and our Google stars have increased from 2.4 to currently 3.3 out of 5. And there's a lot of things that we've discussed. There's a lot of ongoing public relations building initiatives, a lot of items to demonstrate the value of our services. Those are also things that I've been prioritizing on and working through throughout my tenure, and will continue to do that.
How are you, how are you encouraging people? You obviously did something to get those.
Yeah, so we have.
Double your reviews almost, or, you know.
We have a variety of recognition and incentive rewards that we provide to our team members. And so in an effort to really kind of boost it, because we've been talking about it for a while and been trying to kind of build this, review. We have QR codes on our front desk, and we remind people to do that. We created an incentive challenge for our customer solutions team. The customer solutions team, we ran this from August now through the month of November. So the customer solutions representative, based on our existing recognition programs and rewards that we have, the person who has the highest number of 5-star reviews from a customer that references their name in the review will receive an incentive reward of $500 at the end of the year. And then the person who receives the second highest number of 5-star reviews with their name reference receives a second place incentive bonus of $250, subject to taxes and applicable budgets. Renee, just something to add?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that's really helped us also is our new communication channel, which is text messaging, because it's a lot easier for our customers that are happy to go in and just click that link and go do the review right away versus the QR code and everything else. So I think that's really helped us get some of those positive reviews out there. Very good, very fantastic.
So within budget, within, our approved policies, for example, we do have a monthly recognition program for all of our team where employees and their peers recognize people for something going above and beyond. And each month we present that as part of a team meeting. There are monetary rewards as part of those as well to kind of boost morale and make sure folks are recognized in an industry that's oftentimes out of sight, out of mind, and make sure that they're recognized for what they do.
I attended a water users conference, someone was doing the and they said that the only time they ever hear from your board, from your organization is when your pipe breaks and you do something. So that's why your reviews are always low and you know, service organizations is people thinking about you when you're happy.
In the trash.
Absolutely.
Well, they almost never mess up. It's like some of the review you get them.
A few other brief updates. We continue to service over 80 scrap containers per day throughout the season. We're in Mill Creek currently. Compared to the past average of 3 consecutive years, we were averaging about 60 containers a day. So we're still well over a 33% increase in this year's container-based services, which is a result of many items. Later this year, probably come October, we'll have a more comprehensive overview and provide some data as to this year's scrap program once it's all said and done, and have some new numbers for that. However, at the same time, we continue to evaluate the prospective curbside bulky waste model. Today, we do have some information that Renee's put a lot of time and effort into as kind of some conceptual preliminary models on the financial piece, but also on the operational capacity for such a program if we decide to move forward. Next month, there will be a lot more presented as the specifications of the program, the size of the pile, what's accepted, what's not accepted, how do we manage and control code compliance concerns throughout other remaining service areas. But as part of this analysis that Renee will largely present here later today, we've been meeting with other cities that do have existing curbside bulky waste programs. And so very recently, we met with the city of Flagstaff, where I worked with before and managed a curbside bulky waste program. We also met with the city of Scottsdale in Arizona that I've collaborated and built relationships with. They service, I think it was close to 80,000 residential homes, so kind of a similar number of households that they're servicing. And then recently, just last week, we met with the Sandy City Public Works Department to talk about how they manage their bulky waste program, means and methods, frequency of service, capacity from an operational perspective as well. So more to come on that, and this is all helping for us to kind of build our public relations and to meet with new departments that we haven't met with before, for example. And also recently, I met with the Utah Recycling Alliance that supports and basically coordinates a variety of these charm events. You may have heard of this, the Community Hard to Recycle Materials events. So trying to boost our collaboration with them. There is a event coming up in Murray, and they partner with a variety of different vendors. We're going to see how can we help to better support those and grow our public presence, provide some support from recycling and recovery perspectives during some of this community events. So more to come on that, and next month we'll have some more detailed information on a couple other items. And that's all I have prepared for today, and happy to take any questions.
I think the charm is smart. I know most teachers realize that, and I was in the middle of that going, well, that Clifford does that too, right? So I'm glad that we're finding ways to collaborate. Outreach.
All right, moving on, 3.2, we have the safety and loss prevention.
Yes, Shane Norris will join us at the table here. He's presented a general overview of our current safety program. Shane manages and also oversees our claims process from automotive accidents to employee injuries. It helps to do the investigations from beginning to end and make sure that we're best protecting our staff and the organization's best interests. And so, as you probably remember me saying before, this industry, particularly the collections piece of the solid waste industry, is and it has continued to be on the top 10 most deadliest occupations for a period of over a decade. Currently, the solid waste industry is considered the top 5 most deadliest industry to work in. That's largely as it pertains to driving and people that end up getting out of their trucks, and also as it relates to other folks that are on the road as well. So safety and growing our safety culture is something that I'm constantly kind of trying to reinforce with the organization. Shane will provide a brief overview of his history, but he used to be in a fire service department capacity, and I'll hand it over to him unless he has like to say.
Good morning. I apologize up front. Presentation will not be dramatic as one you just dealt with. So please excuse me with that. My PowerPoint presentation skills, they're dated. So please excuse me for that one as well. Again, my name is Shane Norris. I started here with Wilford December of 22. And the first one to hold a full-time position in safety capacity for such fire waste. With that being said, coming in, there were a lot of issues in that low-hanging fruit to reach up and grab. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then since then, we've been going for a lot higher thing. I feel that we as a safety program have made significant improvements, not just myself, but as a whole organization as a whole, and just getting complete buy-in. First one, Renee, if you can, thank you. Start with the safety culture. That's a big one here that Evan really stresses, is making sure that we're all good at buying into this. This starts with recognizing safety issues, trends, using those trends for data, collecting that data, and then acting upon it. Not just looking at it and say, well, we have a problem here. We see the problem. We want to deal with that problem. We want to get it before it becomes a bigger problem. So starting with that, that just starts with SOP, identifying, writing SOPs and different things, and policies to help us with that, having review to make sure that we're doing the right thing, not just the right thing for the organization, but the right thing for the individuals who are actually once on the ground doing the work. As Evan mentioned, it is a dangerous job. Even though we're not doing, where we're out picking up the trash bin, we still have significant accidents and injuries and bad things. Part of the safety culture also entails is, practicing what you preach. It's very big. And as we sit in this office, most of us are in here, we're not wearing safety vests or safety helmets. We're not out in the field. I'm not wearing steel toe protected shoes right now, like my comfortable office shoes here. But when we go out in the field, supervisors, managers, even the executive staff, practice, they put on the safety vest. We expect everyone else to wear high visibility. We expect them to, they want to see us wearing it. They're like, look, if you want us to do it, so even when Helen's out there, doing something in the field, she's got her vest on. That's important because they see that. They realize, hey, Helen takes it seriously. I need to take this seriously. Sometimes at Helen, we're not going to get paid. So it's very important that Helen is safe and protected from all of us. So with that, it's also, Evan is making sure that we have appropriated the correct funds that we need to provide, whether it's various training. We just had a third party come in and do an extensive fire extinguisher training. The Department of Transportation, they have to have the fire extinguisher training. So we brought in a party, had a live fire. We'll see a picture of it in a minute. Out in the back here, and the people who've never fired extinguisher got to play with extinguishers, got to do it multiple times. So we let the office staff come in and had a fire extinguisher training. So that costs money because we had to pay for the products, the trainers, and some of the other things. Fortunately enough, we were able to do that project. And again, if I use an acronym or any kind of terminology, please stop me and let you help you understand what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Renee. So basically we're going to start off with some training, just what we do with our operators. Monday morning tailgates. This is something we give out every Monday, obviously. And it's just a brief training of something. Today they got basically a friendly reminder, just some things some small topics we want to just make sure they have on the forefront. And we let the leads do this. The leads are the ones, they're the teams that are out in the field. We let them we try to keep it under 10 to 15 minutes, just a small training, just something where the leads can have interaction first thing during the week, Monday morning, have interaction with all their team, discuss things. And again, there are various things. And again, this one was from reminders. Last week was back to school. Don't really think about it, but when school's back in session, it really affects us. It affects our timing, it affects more people on the road, kids running around, not paying attention. So that was last week. So we try to keep a very current thing with our Monday morning tailgates. Safety stand downs is something we do once a month. And that's going back and reviewing previous months, accidents, injuries, anything that important that happened back then that they should be made aware about. Excuse me. What that's doing is we're not making fun of people because they had an accident. We're just saying, hey, look, this happened. This could happen to you. We don't want this to happen. And then we have discussion. What could be, we look out for in the future to make sure this doesn't happen to you or someone else. And then at the end of the month, we offer basically our bread and butter safety trainings. This last month, we did an obstacle course. We set up some cones, we worked on backing, so all the drivers, anyone who operates a commercial vehicle is going through some of an obstacle course. This week is basically just doing post checkoffs on what to look for, specific items and everything on the trucks. Just making sure we're being compliant with the Department of Transportation's for CDL drivers. So that's basically operator for training. For no questions, we'll move on. Managers and supervisors. Obviously, with the higher position, we try to have a little bit more detailed training, like with distracted driving, what to look for, not necessarily them doing the distracted driving, but what to look for when they're out in the field observing our drivers. Making sure they're not on their cell phones, they're not talking on the radios too much, they're making sure the seatbelts are the same. Accident investigation reporting. We do training on this once a year. It's basically staying current with the trends on how we investigate accidents for ourselves. This is really big. We get like accident investigation with the insurance and everything. This is kind of where it starts here. Reasonable suspicion. We had this training last week. This is required for people who have CDL drivers working for them. Managers and supervisors are required to have biannual reasonable suspicion of drug and alcohol. What to look for, signs and symptoms, just different things to make sure we're staying on top of that. It goes in line with our drug and alcohol testing policy. Injury response, what to do, you know, when someone gets hurt on the job, those type of things where they need to be in the ER, we just take them to our work med physician. And maybe somebody just, they got hurt, but they don't want to report it. It's like, you know, hey, look, I wrote my name. So we're like, okay, let's document that with the reviews, all first reported injury. That just kind of starts the thing, because if tomorrow you can't get out of bed because of your ankle, now the paperwork is started, it's an easier flow into the system. It just bleeds right into, and we can follow what response. Hazard spill prevention and cleanup. Unfortunately, we have some hydraulic spills issues that happen. Our trucks, so 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid. So you can imagine with 50 gallons of nasty stuff, leaks or spills, it can be a mess. And if the pump's on, if we don't catch it soon enough, it can be pretty ugly. We'll have another, we'll discuss that a little further down, but we want to make sure our supervisors know what to do when they show up, how to get down the proper ozone to do the contact and everything else with that. Administrative staff, you know, we can't leave out the office staff here. We got to make sure that they're safe, they're doing everything they're supposed to do. Because we are in a county facility, we kind of piggyback off the county's emergency response manual. This manual is what to do if a bomb threat's called. Right? As if an active shooter shows up. Fire alarms, CO spikes in the building, everything. So we work hand in hand. Rusty upstairs is my safety counterpart for the county. She and I meet about once a year, just kind of talk about everything. Ergonomics, that's kind of a new important topic, especially for office staff. We identified we were having some different issues of back and some leg, ISAI issue going on. And then we recognize that, and that's thank you for approving, but we got new office chairs finally. So I have one more depth for someone who's larger guy fit in, so it fits me a lot better. Thank you. When you're sitting in a chair all day, it makes sense to have something great from you. First aid, we want to make sure everybody's current on first aid, CPR. We do offer CPR training twice a year to our staff. Make sure everybody's knows what's going on. Getting an active shooter, fire and earthquake drill. We've worked with the Utah Shakeout. We've had them come in and do some training. It's kind of fun with because they bring some fun stuff. Then we have some online options that are given to us through Utah Trust, Reliant. It's different topics. Sometimes we'll use it, Joshua with Hazel back here, maybe a workplace bullying or harassment or something. We do it online. We have ways to track it to see where everything and who's taking and who's doing well. Make sure everybody's staying compliant. So that is training. Any questions? For you? Trying to go fast. I know you guys want to get out. So the Utah Local Governments Trust is basically our insurance agency that we work. They have 650 different cities, counties, districts throughout the state. They actually do a real good job. They're a great resource for us. I use them consistently to questions, how do we do things. Not having an issue with a workers' comp representative, I reach out to them and before I know it, my issues are solved. So we're very fortunate to have them. But with that, they have some things that they expect from us. Infrastructure inspections. They essentially making sure, once a month, I walk the entire property to look for any kind of hazards, any kind of crack in the sidewalk, any kind of issue that causes an injury or something. And again, because we're a county, I have to work with the county to get it fixed. The most recent, probably large scale, was a few years ago. We had to identify that needed repaving down to CGI. Brought to the board approved it. And so now we've made a lot of trips and areas and then some slips and stuff. It's icy and stuff. Complaint documentation. This is a new one. So basically what the trust is asking is that we start the documentation when we have a customer complaint come in. They want to know that first phone call. So now we have implemented where we're documenting everything through emails to where if the complaint does go to some kind of financial issue where we have to file a claim, they have a paper trail of where that came from. Employee management and policy review. This is just making sure that we're holding our compliance, that we're reviewing our SOPs and our policy manual to make sure it's current, making sure we're seeking legal advice periodically to make sure that we're not doing anything we shouldn't be doing. Fraud risk assessment, it says, making sure that we have audits that come in every now and then, so making sure that the number we put down, the amount for salaries for workers' comp and everything, making sure that's compliant. So from there, and legal awareness is just making sure we're staying up to date. They require us, me, to have to sit through legal training. Legal training that I have to sit through. I got to stay current on liability, legal issues and trends and everything. Just make sure that I'm staying educated in everything that I need to do. Driver accountability, making sure that we hold our drivers accountable, making sure that we're doing background checks on them, checking all our drivers when they come into the company to make sure they're safe. For distracted driving policies, SOPs, making sure again that we're following that. We're doing everything we can to mitigate the distracted driving and trying to take specific things away. We have some drivers who they love to talk on the radio. They're driving. So we have to kind of get on to them about that. Supervisor accountability is making sure that we are holding our supervisor accountable, that they're out doing their job, making sure that everyone is playing safe and thinking about the rules. No one's speeding. No one's talking on their phones, wearing their seatbelts. High risk driver trigger. This is something that we have documentation through accidents that if we start realizing if there's a driver with a trend, it may be something small. They may hit a little mailbox one day, they may get a fence one day, they may get a tree one day. And those seem small when you look at them one by one. But as they accumulate over a 6-month or a 12-month period, you realize that you may have a driver that's just being unsafe or not doing what they're supposed to do. So that lets us know. We review that once a week. We look at specific drivers and their history and their trends. And then we take action. That action may be retraining, it may bring them in, putting them with another driver or someone more senior to kind of follow them. Sometimes supervisors get in there. We got a young lady who's having difficulty with backing, so we put a supervisor in there with her, drove around and just did some training, on the job training, just to make sure she's comfortable with backing. Documentation and compliance with the trust. Also, I'm not going to read all these things. So if you have anything, anything that kind of sticks out to you, basically my job is to make sure we're doing all of this. To make sure that we're keeping up reporting, make sure we have the updates, the medical care, our return to work policy. So what this does is with us making sure, because we get basically audited from the trust once a year. They come in, they sit down with me and I've got to provide documentation that we're doing all this. And in doing so, we receive a 5% reduction in our premiums. That sometimes can be substantial. So that's just one way that we're saving money using the trust. It's by doing this documentation, making sure when they come in, they just, where's this, where's this, where's this, boom, 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 there it is. Once they're satisfied, then we get our annual 5%.
Where are the MVRs?
Motor vehicle records.
Oh,
So once a month, every driver who's employed here with a CDL, including myself, Operation Manager David, we get checked. So if David's heading out the window this weekend and has a little too much, we're going to know about it real quick. And where that comes into play, again, going back to the trigger hazards, if I have a driver who's got several speeding tickets, failed to use blinker, even if they're in their personal vehicle, we're going to know about it. So, you know, it's funny, he got a citation for speeding and then we caught him speeding over here and then we can address that for you. So, are there any questions on the trust that I could answer? Thank you. Okay, now the fun stuff. Unfortunately, we do have accidents. Sometimes the incidents, sometimes our fault, sometimes not our fault. So the process, essentially, once the accident happens, the driver reaches out, calls the manager or the supervisor, we go out and do an investigation. We coordinate with police officers if police are involved, if 911's involved, of course, they're the first one to go up, take care of the emergency. And our supervisors, again, through their training, they make sure they get witness statements, they get a statement from the other party, our information, the driver's statement, like whatever their information be, they bring it back in here. A group of us meet once a week to go over the accident. we determine what is at fault, not at fault, or corrective action needs to be taken there. That follows through. There, we keep a point system. Basically, so you have an accident that you're found at fault, points accumulate. Once you get to a certain notice, it can get corrective action of 1 day suspension, 2 days, and so on. So in-house claims. So what this is, let's say sometimes we'll just damage a mailbox, something that we don't want to file an insurance. Our deductible with the insurance on anything that starts at $10,000. So if I can handle that at $3,000 with an in-house payment, it saves that much money, and then it also saves us in the premiums of the back end years. Just like you have an accident, you get a little ding, next thing you know, your insurance is probably going to go up the following year because of that. So we try to handle small things. I try to negotiate with whomever, the property owner, and just work it out. Once we work out, Ed and I usually have a little sit down, we discuss what's going on, we discuss it, we look at estimates that were provided to us, and then if approved, go from there. Making sure that we file the proper paperwork following with the notice of claim, which is required by the state of Utah. Anytime anybody's receiving financial back from a government entity in the state of Utah, and then getting a property release signed. Yes.
So it makes sense that you would just pay out of pocket for anything below the deductible. Is there an amount above the deductible you would just pay out as well? Because I've done that myself where it's like not worth dealing with the insurance.
That it would be case by case.
Right.
And there's some that fall under the $10,000, but when they start getting into like rental cars and other things like that, we don't have a policy or anything that dictates how we would handle that. So we just kind of right now let this file like saying, and then go with that. You'd be surprised. I don't want to get into the details. Some of the craziness we deal with people demanding a brand new car, people demanding, and it's a straight down.
Yeah.
So that would, again, would be a case by case. Now, we have done that in the case of our own vehicles. We have damage. We had an accident last year and we decided to write that off and keep it, no file a claim, just because. Okay, and then last training to get our drivers back on route. Discuss that if there's any kind of issue, we get the proper training. Make sure they feel comfortable to get them back to route. We have some drivers who have an accident and doesn't phase them. We have some drivers that are literally taking 2 days off of work for getting treated. So it's just, we just got a case by case basis. Thank you. This is just some quick numbers, arm functions for 24 and 25 for the year. There's a lot going on with the arm. I believe most of you have seen the arm functions, what goes on with those. Sometimes we put our drivers in bad situations, narrow streets, cars parked on both sides of the streets, overgrown trees, mailboxes, whatever. So yes, they're supposed to get out and move, but sometimes they don't have anywhere to move it. And then trying to get the can and reach it and everything. Unfortunately, backing is something that we strive for 0 backing accidents annually, but unfortunately we have that. But we do require our drivers to back on lines. There's a lot of backing. Some of our drivers will literally have 40 back-ins a day, but backing into a cul-de-sac off of a busy intersection. So luckily, those heavier backing routes, we do try to put our more experienced senior drivers on those. Thank you. Just some fun little pictures here. This is the hydraulic spill that happened last year. We discussed that earlier. The driver identified the hydraulic leak, reached out to the supervisors. Through their training, they came out and we started mitigating the spill as much as possible, getting oil dried down, getting the proper resources dispatched to the area to make sure that we had enough people on site to deal with it. This also comes with notifying the municipality that we're in, or the municipal special districts, to let them know we have this, we're in your area, we're working on it. We also reach out to the health department to notify them. Sometimes we get a response from them, sometimes we don't. But they're a great resource to come out and help us take care of the incident. And if it does escalate beyond our resources, they can come in with more resources to help us. This is just to show us what some of our drivers deal with. This is just a typical street. We can give a bit here. You can tell how low the trees are with the cars. This time of year, we hit a lot of tree branches. Obviously, our shrubs are 12.5, 13 feet tall. As we're cruising down, we have to go down the road. We really have an option. So our drivers try to be careful. At this time of year, things are growing. You know, they made a month ago, it may not be there. This month, there's a tree sitting out the road. Right now, we're hitting a lot of communication lines, lower line, power line type stuff. So what happens? So we spoke with Rocky Mountain Power, and if they aren't hung right, is they heat up, right? Like most plastic rubber, it starts to sag. And then the bow with our drivers been down that road every Tuesday all year long, and all of a sudden, yesterday it was 110 degrees, whatever, and they go down, they catch the power line. Sometimes the power line snaps, or the line itself snaps. Sometimes we take a few poles. So next video here, it's kind of grainy. It's obviously a rainy day, but if you kind of look just up at the top, Renee, if you can kind of point out the power line just at the top of the road, right in there. That's a power line that was installed. This is a Tuesday route. We had been down the road the Tuesday before. The power line wasn't installed. They installed it between that Tuesday and then they decided to have it. So our driver, hopefully the sound, can you make sure the sound off, Renee? This is my fault. I don't know what you guys hearing our drivers and someone talking to themselves.
Like you have like a podcast on this.
Yeah. So anyway, you can see the power line a lot better there. Again, this was recently hung. And here in just a second, we're going to catch that with the top of our truck. And if you start looking towards the right of the camera, you'll start seeing transformers blowing. You'll start seeing, so right now the power line is on the truck. The communications line, I don't want to say power line. All of a sudden you start seeing some flashes. Just a second, another one pop right there. Our driver realizes, uh-oh, something's wrong, backs up, realizes the line's on his truck. Unfortunately, this happens quite a bit. I've formed a good relationship now with Rocky Mountain Power, reach out to them. So in showing you this, what we try to do is we encourage our drivers through training and conversation to say, hey, when you identify this line's low, or a tree's low, or there's some form of hazard, let us know. So I've got Rocky Mountain Power. I work closely again with other service districts and their codes and public works to try to mitigate this as fast as possible. Because this pulled down two power lines, two power poles that landed on someone's house. So that could have been really ugly. Fortunately, Rocky Mountain Power signed off that this was not our fault, that the line was on low, and we got lucky with that. So the next one here, next video. Renee, if you can kind of just jump to about 30 seconds on this. This is just some of the stuff our drivers have to deal with. This is just one of those, again, right up on the bench in Mill Creek. Just one of the storms that just came in super fast. Drivers, this guy over here, the one you see, he'd been slipping and sliding. And our driver is going to try to make it down the hill here. We've got another 10 seconds. And so he's going, then you'll see the miles per hour up there go to 0, but he's still moving.
Yikes.
Sliding is fun.
And then he's heading right out the major intersection. He is complete slide, his rear end's going out from under him. Yeah, he's sliding, right? There's no rolling. Doing everything he can. I just wanted to put this in there just to let you know that some of the hazards that our drivers do face. I mean, these trucks, you would think they would do really well in the snow, but they do not. Just like a normal pickup truck, if you don't have four-wheel drive, the rear end's pretty light. This just happened. So kind of, yeah, don't mind this. Right.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't go.
There it is.
So anyway, as you can tell, he just slides right out to the major intersection here. Fortunately for us, there were no, or anyone else, or no cars coming. And our driver did a great job as a professional, and he straightened it right out and finished his run. Thank you, Renee.
Done.
Okay, yep, we'll move that. Okay, so, this is just showing, some insurance and monies, that happened with automobile claims. Obviously, 2024 is up there for the more senior members of the board. You may remember the Sugar House incident. This is where that money came from. It was an expensive year. 25 last year, we had some damage with a truck, a couple of trucks. So you can kind of see our trend in 26, knock on wood, we seem to be doing really well with our monies and everything so far. Any questions on any of those numbers? Okay. Workers' compensation, again, we discussed earlier about filling out the first report of injury, making sure that we're notified of every injury so we can collect the data and the trends. We do have policies for restricted duty. That's when someone who's injured on the job and they have to return to work, but they can't drive a commercial vehicle. So it's basically some kind of clerical work, or we have some smaller route audit type of work we have them do. We do have a return to work process depending upon the injury and how long the employee was out of work on the retraining and then everything. It's a case by case basis. If you miss 2 weeks of work, you don't need as much training as someone, like I've got an individual who's been out 6 months. Obviously, that individual is going to have a lot of retraining once they come back. This all affects our EMOD. We have experience, familiar with EMOD, that's our experience modification factor. That's what determines our workers' comp premiums through our insurance. The higher the number, obviously, the higher we're going to pay at the end of the day with our premiums. Our EMOD, when I started here in 22, was 2.33, with 1 being ideal, 1 being perfect. 2025, we've got it down to 1.74, now 1.6, showing us a savings of over $21,000 just from handling the workers' comp claims and having fewer claims and everything that have gone through with that. And then the next slide is just showing some of the numbers with injuries. 2026, this just is about to have one more. It's a lot of paperwork. Chair. The claim for 2026, this is actually just 2 claims. Just the one individual I told you has been out 6 months with a torn rotator cuff. We're pushing $90,000 just on that one individual. So this number, the 112, is literally just 2 individuals' claims filed for the year. So it's just expenses are getting higher as we all everything's going up. Are there any questions with this? Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you, and if there's no more questions, I will break your meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for all you do to keep our, everybody safe, regardless of everybody. All right, let's move on to 3.3. This is something I'm actually really looking forward to talking about, is the preliminary curbside bulky waste model. And just to clarify, we're going to get a lot more information about this next month as well. So if there's questions that Evan doesn't cover, we will, I probably cover those next month. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretty much hand this off to Renee, who's been instrumental in preparing this information, and kind of building these preliminary conceptual models that we'll review today. So.
Yeah, just like board chair Greg had mentioned, is I'm really excited to talk about this because, as you all know, our bulky waste program is our most popular program. And I think in any city, even outside of our district, it's what we found out is that's the most popular program that elected officials even went on. That's surprising to me. Wow, that's exciting. So this is again just a high level, you know, just a little bit of a taste of what we'll discuss more in detail next month of how the program would work more specifically. But just wanted to give you some comparisons of historical data, what we're looking at current year, and what we're projecting based on some assumptions that we'll review high level here. So as you all know, our scrap program has historically been able to service between 9 and 10% of the overall population that we service every week. And so, and then also our our folks that are on what we call our unfulfilled waitlist requests has been trending about 3,000 a year. So those are 3,000 additional folks that have told us, they're willing to wait on that cancellation wait list. And the great news is this year, as Evan pointed out earlier, we're already greater than 33% over what we've done historically in prior years. So just a few of the changes that great ideas he came in with, and we brainstormed as operations and just really made it a little more successful. So that's having us trend to be about 12% of our overall population. So that's pretty significant increase just in 1 year, just with the minor changes we've made. So as you probably may know, our current container-based automation system isn't the most efficient. And we just really don't think it's going to be sustainable over time. So that's why we've been really digging in and saying, what can we do in the future? So the proposed curbside model that we're looking at providing is we could potentially provide the service to all of our residents up to twice a year. Now, this is based off of a 50% set out rate, which in talking with all of these other cities, that's basically what they've experienced, is not everyone's going to have multi items to put out, even at that time. So in the first part of the year, our first pass, maybe resident A has some stuff. In the second part of the year, maybe resident B has some stuff, or maybe resident A has stuff in both first and second, but resident B has nothing. So again, we were basing on an assumption of about 50%. And then when we went in and was talking with these other cities, they said, you're right on, essentially, because that's what we've experienced. So the program would operate with 3 collection crews is what we're looking at. So each consisting of 2 full-time employees and 1 temporary employee. The difference between our seasonal employees that we have now versus a temporary for this projected program is that in the future, we would be going with a temp company, temp agency, as you can say. So there's a little more liability on making sure we're going to have that staff. And then also, we're not needing them to be CDL certified. So this is someone that's going to be more on the ground, going ahead, inspecting, getting the piles ready for the 2 full-time folks that are coming up behind operating those trucks. So that's going to help us out. The proposed bulk side waste program would operate from February through October. So that's essentially being able to add an additional 40 days to the program because of this way that we're doing it versus the container reservation system. And then during the bulky waste off season, those 2 full-time employees will still have work to do because they still have the leaf program that will run once the bulky waste program stops through end of December, and then in January. So they're going to have work all year. I pause there. Any questions so far? Anything in mind, Karen? So by transitioning from this individual container reservation program to the bulk side or the curbside program, we're forecasted to reduce obviously the hook lift truck rentals and container maintenance because those would go away. Fuel maintenance, seasonal CDL drivers and overtime, which I already talked about briefly, and administrative support. Right now, I'm not sure everyone's may have some idea of the administrative support that the current scrap program takes, but it takes a lot. And so this will really help reduce on that cost. It's the time where we can move forward with some great, wonderful new programs for the district.
Can mattresses go in this program?
So that's still TBD. So because what we've learned from some of the partner cities that we've talked to is, I think was it Scottsdale, they allow like the single and the full, but anything over that, then they do not allow. Because you're looking at 1 person versus 2 or 3 that have to get in there. Plus, it also takes up a lot of space in that, in our rear loader, which is the main vehicle that we will be using. And we also have an additional program called the SCCS program that the folks can sign up for, that we can come and even though it has a fee and it has a cost, but those are things, hopefully people aren't overturning their mattresses often. Each their own, I guess.
We do see a lot of mattresses in the scrap program, so there's a high likelihood we will accept them if this is initiated, at least from the get. But they can jam up the trucks and get wedged between blades and create a lot of problems. With the rear load truck, with pack the materials. And I think this year alone, we had one instance where we were dropping the scrap containers and we're able to load, I think it was like 16 or more individual containers into one rear load truck, saving on transportation cost to and from the disposition facility. That's a big part of what this looks like and Renee.
TTS. Temporary transfer station.
So the new model will require some initial capital to make the program work. We've come up with what those figures look like. So the price tag includes this initial capital with 3 articulating grapple loaders for the bulky loading itself into one of the rear load trucks per team. And we're also researching possibly a lease to own to just see what that looks like, especially in year one, as we're starting to just roll this out and see, okay, how active are our residential folks going to be? You know, are our projections and assumptions right on, or are they way off? So financial highlights. I know this has been the big piece that everyone's wanting to know. So 2025, the scrap actual program cost was approximately 1.9. And then the 2026 projected scrap costs, we're looking a little bit higher because we put a lot more effort into this year. As you saw, a 33% increase in prior historical services. But we had $2.3 million there for this year. That's what we're projecting for end of the year. And the proposed curbside program, we're looking at an annual operating cost of approximately 1.68 million. So what that equates to is that our new program savings compared to 2025, we're looking at about 316,000, which is about a 15%, 16% savings there. And compared to our current year, again, this current year is more expensive because we put more effort into that. Looking at about $673,000 savings there, which is close to 29%.
So we'd be able to recoup those capital expenses pretty quickly.
Yes, absolutely. So here are the numbers right here that I had just highlighted, and it shows down here what the annual savings would be. This shows the different cost categories that we had segmented into: personnel, fleet and equipment, administrative. I put the little star right here on administrative because that's where that additional behind the scenes administrative work, you know, we have to look at, you know, all the time that, you know, our customer solutions manager spends on, you know, getting that calendar up and running and the reservation and the daily work. And then Jorge, our MIS guy, how he has to scrub files daily. Sailing and Dave and all the time that they're spending, making sure we're taking care of those customers on the cancellation wait list, our communication effort, all of that. So we integrated that in our administrative costs to say, you know what, based on their MRP, this is what we're paying for them to spend all of this time on this program versus running daily operations. So that's why that's added in there. And then disposal tipping fees, overhead unallocated, that's taken from Tom's wonderful finance report. I'm gonna keep this up here real quick. Service comparison, so household container service, you can see right here. 2025 actual 7,457, which is about 8.6% of our overall residents. 2026 projected of that 10,000, a little over 10,000. So that's that 33% increase, and that's close to 12% right there. And again, what we're proposing, we're looking at about 74,227 residents a year. Again, that's based off the 50% sell rate. And I want to make a note, this is our current weekly customer count minus Harriman, Canyons, and North Salt Lake. So we made that adjustment. So it's not the 86.5. That's why it's the 74. Then here's more detail on that initial capital. Rear load truck, grapple loader, trailer for the grapple loader. I think I've already covered this, but the best news is this year service capacity increased from 9 to 10% to about 12%. And then the new model is designed to service approximately 50% of our overall residents.
Hey, do you sell the current containers? What, do you have the containers, right, that you place,
Yes.
you'll hold those or sell those, or what ends up happening to those?
Well, one of the things that we're hoping we could potentially bring back is the container rent program. in the future. So, as we learned from our customer solutions agents, is that we get a lot of call-ins from customers. Hey, where's that trailer rental program? Hey, can I rent something? I know I can't get on the scrap program, but I'm willing to pay. And so we're hoping to possibly use those, so that would be some additional revenue that I haven't even accounted for in this program that we could actually get.
And we would base that off of full cost recovery. We've been kind of underpriced in previous years. And so as part of this as well, we would probably want to reinstate what we've done in the past years for the canyon communities, where each resident's offered kind of a year-round reservation that they can kind of request at their convenience, make that a more effective than it was this year. We had to kind of restrict it to only a 1 month basis.
So now it can be year round for them to request.
Pending weather conditions, so we would kind of reinstate what we've done in the past, which was, I think, between March and September, residents could call and then basically get service for up to like 1 trailer per year. It was a longer time frame, helps to better support the canyon communities as well. So
And we'd be paying for those.
those would be complimentary,
They would be-
1 per residence, as we've done in the past, because the scrap program currently does not have that capacity for those communities.
This is good.
So we haven't talked about the extensive detail, but that's kind of what we want to do. And then by reinstating the fee-based container and trailer-based services, we'd be able to keep that team busy throughout the year, bringing revenues that would be based on full cost recovery. And then when there are requests from the canyon communities to provide those services as part of that. So a new curbside program, we would not accept certain things that we accept in our current program, such as construction and demolition debris, rocks, dirt, sod, grasses, like really super heavy items. Those will not be accepted curbside, so we can offer this fee-based service on top of that, or for folks that are doing renovations or remodels. And we are getting a lot of requests this year. We kind of paused the trailer program for the fee-based rentals, and there are still quite a few people that are calling with us.
So more to come on that, which I think the numbers are incredibly compelling, so I'm really excited.
And there's clearly a ton of challenges. We're gonna be working through those, and there is like a capacity analysis that Renee has next, if we can kind of just go through that briefly as well. So that was kind of look at the financial piece. And I will say the administrative overhead in our current scrap program is incredibly intensive. It takes up a ton of our day-to-day time. For the website reservations, scrubbing the data, the routing, the identification where the location is. And our program manager that runs the scrap program and also oversees our recycling and green waste program. He's probably 60 to 80% of his time spent on the scrap program. It's a lot. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So this is a part I've created just to where we can adjust it if we find out some of our assumptions again are. So here we can go in if we wanted to say, okay, because right now we're targeting about 3 minutes per home. What we learned is that, basically per home, it can be anywhere between 50 and 60 seconds, but you're incorporating in the travel time to go and, dump the truck. So that's why it brings it up to about 3 minutes. So essentially at 3 minutes per crew per day, or 3 minutes per crew per home, we would be able to surplus even 4,323 homes over what we already have allocated. But if you just put that up just a little bit, I think it's running into negative. So that's why we're sticking right in about the 3 minutes to give us a little bit more. Yeah, we won't. Anything else you want to highlight?
No, this is just our operational capacity model. We've spent a lot of time talking to these other cities about, the crews that they need. This is all basically our analysis. Originally, I was hoping to only have to need 2 crews, but this has quickly demonstrated we would need 3 crews to meet the goal of two annual services per household, based on that assumption of 50% setup rates. I did forget to mention, so this year we're renting, I think, 10 hook lift trucks. We also own about, I think, 3, or there's one that's transitioning, so we have 4 that we own. So that would already be in place, that capital to perform and reinstate that, you guys. So more to come on this. This was kind of our way to really understand, will this program work? What would the costs look like? And can we make this happen? And largely, instead of having to do a online reservation, we would be still looking at sending out postcards and probably identify different service areas and routes. So looking at how many homes a crew could service per day, then putting that into a week and then having the 3 crews. We're touching, I think, 9,000 homes every week, but only 50% of those setting them out, so 4,500 homes service. So looking at that would be how we would develop our routing. And we would basically send out postcards saying, hey, this is your time frame. Don't set your materials until the Sunday prior to your week of collection. And we would maintain that type of service as well. Instead of having to do the reservations, which is just incredibly time intensive, each area would be sort of split up by zones and have those twice annual service timeframes that would be provided, largely in a postcard and other.
Would you send the postcards twice per year or just once per year with all the dates on one card?
TBD, probably once. So a few cities gave us caution to not post the collection days on our website.
Oh.
Because there are people that see that, like contractors go and they'll unload those streets. So we have to be kind of somewhat incognito as to where those locations occur. So a whole other code compliance item as well. One thing that Renee and I talked about very recently is that in addition to what was shown with the financials, we would probably want to rehire and backfill a second quality assurance inspector that would predominantly focus on this program and go ahead of the areas, help to support things from a code compliance perspective. And make sure that these piles are in compliance, reach out to residents that have prohibited materials out there, and hopefully to alleviate some of that. So that's one other item we would probably want to add to this, is to reinstate a full-time quality assurance inspector to help manage this program and support code compliance and education issues.
I know and I have no background in all of that, but as I kind of chatted with some city staff around this, it was mostly the our stormwater team that was, like, we really would like, let's make sure we're done well. Right? So that was kind of like, yeah, it would be some guidelines and work with state compliance, such that.
We're not reinventing the wheel, cities to be.
Yeah.
And it might just be a communication piece, so those stormwater teams are aware and can be helpful, right, in those and being aware of those data.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, placement of the pile, there's a lot of things to look at as part of this. Sandy City has residents placed at 3 feet away from the curb, which puts things in the middle of the street, which is also problematic. I'd like to keep it at or before the curb. And then if you have a sidewalk right there, you have ADA compliance concerns. So there's a lot of things to look at, and each city, each street is unique in of itself too. So more to come on that, and we'll present some more refined information. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. I think this looks really promising. I'm excited. We're running short on time, but I do think we can get through these. I don't know, Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, I would like to try to at least introduce these topics if possible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um,
Are we okay if we go a couple minutes over? No need to jump out really fast. Okay.
So if we're at 3.4, I did provide a 2-page agenda item summary explaining what we're looking at, why we're looking at this. And basically with Harriman's now pending withdrawal, we need to reevaluate and adjust our day of collection, so we are evenly distributing our daily routes throughout our collective remaining service areas. So Harriman currently, and there's a map section on the wall that show the current service, and then what we're looking at as a tentative service come January 1, in some cases after Harriman's withdrawal. Harriman is currently serviced 4 days a week, and Mondays are our green waste collection timeframes in that community. So our heaviest days are Tuesday in Harriman, which we dedicate seven routes, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is roughly 5 routes per day in Harriman proper. So we're looking at splitting up and evenly distributing those routes throughout our main service areas. And so another part of it that we're looking at is our go back collection days. And so we're not perfect. Sometimes we do inadvertently miss a street or a resident collection for a service. So our current service days are not in the best alignment from nearby adjacent geographic proximity of conducting return go back if we miss the containers the next day. So currently our go back days are 2 and sometimes 3 days after we learn that we missed a street, for example. So from a customer service and a customer relations perspective, our team having to talk about, hey, sorry, we missed your container, we'll be back in 3 days is not the best public relations and public rapport from our inadvertent missed collections. And so another part of what we're proposing to reroute some of these areas is to best facilitate the most efficient and least expensive go back collection schedule, which would be scheduled for the days subsequent to the missed collection. So the very next day, we would support some go backs. So Jordan, if you can just stay on that, the map that really quickly does a little bit. So obviously Harriman Southwest will still continue to service. That's about 200-ish homes. Copperton is about 300 homes, and the private communities in Harriman proper that will continue to service is roughly another 300 homes. So based on our most extensive, highest number of routes per day in Harriman currently, we're looking to change Copperton service to Tuesdays to offset and evenly distribute those daily routing needs for our service area. So currently Copperton is serviced Wednesday, Southwest is currently serviced on Friday. So obviously we want to send and be efficient. We only want to send one truck there, or sorry, one crew there per week instead of going twice. So the go backs there will get a little bit complex, but those communities are less complicated from infrastructure, and I presume there's less miscollections. The big switch here is basically the flip of Taylorsville and then the Holiday Murray Mill Creek collection days. So currently, you'll see on the map, Taylorsville is shown as orange, which would be reflective of a Tuesday collections. Currently, Taylorsville is Thursday. So the idea is here that if we missed any streets or pickups in Magna or Kearns on Monday, which is red, we would be nearby and adjacent in Taylorsville on Tuesday to complete those go backs to be more efficiently and effective in providing that service. Same goes for Wednesday. So Wednesday, we're in Sandy City in the Islands and White City, for example, Cottonwood Heights. If we missed a pickup in Taylorsville from Tuesday, our disposition facilities, the recycling centers, the transportation we use is on the way north towards Taylorsville, which is closer in proximity for that next day service. And then the Murray holiday going from Tuesday to Thursday, we're near Cottonwood Heights. If we miss Cottonwood Heights streets, for example, on Wednesday, we can go back Thursday, we're closer in that area, and then Mill Creek, so on and so forth. So the big thing here is that Emigration is currently serviced Wednesdays. I'm pushing to switch Emigration to Mondays for a couple of reasons. One, if there's snow up there, we can push it out later in the week. But predominantly is to meet this go back demand goal of the next day. So if we miss collections in any area of Mill Creek Friday, which is the dark blue, the folks that are going up to Emigration and back down the canyon can hit those missed picks on the way up or the way down from Emigration as well. One thing before I forget that I wanted to point out. So one other thing, this is preliminary, one other major thing that may have to change as part of this is that we may be biting off more than we can chew for Mondays. Because Harriman currently is a green waste route. On Mondays, we have 5 green waste trucks that go there. We're losing 1,800 accounts, but we also still have to service Mondays, Magnet and Kearns for the green waste collection. So what I'm thinking, if you can zoom in a little bit right to the Kearns and the Taylorsville area, currently we service a small portion of Kearns on Thursday, not Tuesdays. You can see the municipality boundary line there. There's a high likelihood, and Dave and I are looking at this, that we'll need to cut off another sliver of Kearns and add it to Tuesday service, which would become orange as part of this. And so any changes would be communicated through a very robust education outreach program, postcards, probably even container flyers, for example. But we're trying to evenly distribute this workload of all these areas. Harriman, if Harriman withdrawal does take effect end of October into November, those changes will take effect November 1. Whereas the remaining areas, we want time to plan for this. The remaining areas will take effect presumably January of 2027, giving us more time for that. So Southwest and Copperton, this would be more immediate upon Harriman's withdrawal. And then the other areas that we would switch, we're still fine tuning, would be transition January of next year.
Question. You keep saying next day go back. So if my Wednesday, we're talking about Thursday go back, okay, the problem I see with that is most people are gonna be getting home after you've closed Wednesday for my day. How do I notify you to get a Thursday go back the very next morning?
Right.
How fast can you mobilize that go back?
That's a great question. And I'll kind of maybe defer to Renee here with our customer solutions team. They get a call, they're into the go back schedule. So this would be mostly probably the afternoon of next day. If you can scroll to the next page as we talk about this, that'd be super helpful. Because I'm not really clear how we would do next day service and immigration, which I imagine there are probably a lot of missed collections. And same for the Southwest corridor as well. But your question is very valid and logical, and something that we, would strive to meet that demand for that next day customer service. But if Renee can maybe speak towards like how soon do we get calls on this?
Yeah,
It's usually
we generally, like, we're getting anything after the office is closed. That's one of the first things, our customer solutions team does in the morning. We have folks that get here at 7 and 7:30 in the morning. So they listen to voicemails, they review all of the emails and also their chats. And so while we go ahead and post the, next go backs, even before we leave for everything that we've had at this point, we generally, if we get notified by 11 a.m., we can generally get that taken care of.
So that's now gonna be on the customer to make sure that they have responded before 11 a.m. the next day. Assuming they have time. Right, yeah, no, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not being overly ambitious and not giving people adequate time to say, oh, I just realized my trash can never got picked up. And it's now lunchtime when I have time to call. And maybe I should get somebody on the phone, because I'm the kind of person, I don't leave messages and things like that too, because I just assume they're lost in the ether. So that's my only concern with doing it like the very next day, but I do like the plan in general otherwise.
What would happen if they did it in the afternoon? Would they need to wait till the next, or you would kind of base that off of, like, if that was happening consistently, or you would do one-offs?
I think, if it started happening consistently and if it's a larger volume, I think we can circle back and say, okay, does this make sense, right? However, thankfully, like our supervisors and our managers, if they're not on a board, they can sometimes swing out. I know, David gives a lot of, hey, we've got this emergency go that needs to happen. Who's in the area? Sometimes somebody's in the area already. So the girls talk to, we say the girls because they are all ladies that are fun. And so they're on the radio live, constantly with our operations team. And sometimes the leads are doing training, and so they're in that area. So we do have those situations if it's not a lot of folks and if it's not consistent, I don't know.
What's currently, when do you get the most calls for robots? Is it usually like the evening or like when are you usually getting those calls to?
We actually get them a lot in the early afternoon
Of the day.
of service. And it's interesting because our customer solutions team is on the radio often saying, have we hit that route yet? Because sometimes that's what happens. And, the drivers will let us know that we haven't been there. And thankfully, we're able to find some of those units to go back, soon, like right after, because we do have other folks on.
And I think we'll look at a secondary go back schedule. So this is the most simplistic way that we can try to at least enhance this for the time being. Long-term goals is to get utilization of technology and routing software. And typically in a collections operation such as ours, each city would be broken up into multiple days of collections throughout the work week. So you're always like, we would presumably have a team that services just Taylorsville, and they have different routes on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we're always nearby for performing those go back collections as well, and extra service pickups too. So trying to take that on right now would be incredibly overwhelming and a lot of work to evaluate. But in future years, our goal will be to identify and implement that routing software that helps to actually build those routes and create that even distribution throughout those. So this is the more immediate, most simplistic way that we look to make these adjustments to better meet service spread throughout the week, but also to better provide customer service to our customers that have this pickup. So more to come on this. This is preliminary. We need to do some fine tuning. Want to see if there's any feedback or overarching concerns about this as it's completed.
Makes a lot of sense.
I'm just curious, when you do route planning and stuff like that, for this and for the whole program, you know, both ways, it's like, do you take into account density of residential areas? So in other words, my neighborhood, you can go really fast from house to house to house, and it's, you know, down the street, you know, when you're talking the difference between 3 minutes and 3.25 minutes, making it work or not work,
Right.
you know, does that play into it?
To a degree, yes.
Have to, at some.
Yes, collection density, absolutely, because in immigration, you know, for example, we're driving, you know, thousands of feet between households. Right, so that density of collection point is certainly, the 3 minutes for the bulky is kind of a generalized assumption. Right, an average over the entirety of service area. But absolutely, our current routes that each driver has, like for example, Magna split up into probably a dozen routes that we have recycling and trash drivers going. It's based on number of parcels, and we track those completion times. We have a team that is led through a lead operator that helps make sure that team is completed, and that gives us feedback as to when we can adjust those routes on a daily basis.
Any other questions or concerns about these big changes? All right, on to 3.5, considerations to suspend subscription-based curbside green waste collection service operates in the southwest geographic region of Salt Lake County due to significant haul distances, diminished participation outside of it.
I guess I can probably be quite brief on this. I talked with board member Stitzer from Copperton, and board member Stringham from Salt Lake County. But that doesn't forego the need to discuss this as well. So currently, we are servicing about 1,800 green waste subscription services in Harriman proper. Outside of Harriman proper, we have been tracking number of subscriptions in the Southwest unincorporated area, which again is about 200 homes, and then Copperton, roughly closer to 300 homes. Of those service areas, given how far it is outside of our collective combined service area, we currently only have 11 green waste can subscribers. The private areas that will continue to service in Harriman proper is only about roughly 10 additional green waste subscriptions. And so sending a separate truck out there for less than 30 overall subscriptions doesn't seem to make a lot of sense from an efficiency and operation standpoint. These materials used to be accepted at the Trans-Jordan landfill, which is in that similar vicinity, but they suspended permanently their green waste composting program. So we have continued, even with Trans-Jordan closing, to currently haul even all the 1,800 Harriman green waste accounts all the way north of Magna, essentially, to the Salt Lake Valley composting facility. So significant haul distance. And so basically, what we're recommending is that we, of those 11 subscribers in Copperton Southwest, we cancel those subscriptions after Harriman's withdrawal is complete. And we no longer offer that green waste program specifically in Southwest unincorporated or in the town of Copperton, until perhaps there's a time period where we can get significant interest and demand to reinstate that. So just looking at it from an efficiency, financial cost, and operational sensibility perspective, based on what we're seeing with those subscriptions, it doesn't make sense to continue to provide that subscription-based optional add-on service.
That just makes sense to me. It sounds like we talked to the people whose communities are affected, so, and it makes sense to them, I assume.
Board member Stitzer had a couple reservations. We talked through this. She may be on at this point as well. But because we have kind of restricted new subscription services since prior to my tenure in this general area, but also at the same time have not seen, to my understanding, a lot of like interest or requests to add those services for Copperton and Southwest unincorporated as well. So it's a challenging item, and a lot of the other cities that are which is way different than what we're members of Transjordan. To my understanding, those green waste collection services are not being recovered through our composting. They're just being used in some cases as additional refuse. It's being buried at the landfill. It's not being or diverted. So conversely, Woodford has continued to haul that material all the way north to the Salt Lake Valley landfill, based on Transjordan that they suspended their green waste program several years ago.
So your understanding is that other organizations are picking up green waste separately, but then disposing of it in a landfill?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying mostly those programs have been suspended.
Oh, so it's not picking up.
Correct. And then to my understanding, the city of West Jordan has now what's called their green can changed to a seasonal can.
It's just another trash can.
But it's basically a secondary trash.
It's another trash can, but it's only picked up between April.
Okay.
Which is similar to ours. Our green waste program runs roughly March through mid-December. But we have and continue to and will continue to haul those materials to the composting facility that's being operated by Salt Lake County, which is at the extreme northwest portion of the county of the Salt Lake Valley landfill, and adjacent to that is the house.
Any concerns about that change for this?
So predominantly, I was just hoping for support from this body to take that approach. Because I don't think there's a formal motion. It's a subscription-based service. In some cases, we don't offer curbside glass is not offered currently in that area of the county as well, because of distance and density and demand.
I don't know the plan, but you know where the tipping point is to how many subscribers it really required for that to work?
If there was significant interest, I would hope minimum, we haven't done the full analysis from the efficiency standpoint, but I would hope a minimum 50. But hopefully, I mean, ideally it would be like 100 plus interested customers.
Right, well, I mean, unless anyone has any concerns that they're not voicing, I think we're supportive. All right, I guess that's direction meeting.
Yes.
Okay, all right, item 3.6 with Helen, modifications to monthly billing due to dates to avoid billing discrepancies for auto payments.
Right, when we went to monthly billing, we made the due date the last day of the month. That is also the day of our bill date. That has caused a problem between our software, the cell software with the billing payment vendor, Point and Pay. That created a problem for auto pay customers. And so the best way we could determine to correct this problem is to change the due date. So we moved it back to the 27th of every month. The reason we chose that one was kind of February. The 28th and the month, and it's, I think that will This last bill was the first one that we did that with, and I do think this is gonna solve. It's just inflation.
A lot has to do with integration constraints between our various financial and billing systems and form and pay. In the future, we can direct or enhance that. We also make sure the customers get their bills when we change. We've looked at our policy manual. There's nothing that this board has adopted for a specific for billing due dates. So we just wanted to provide that as information. Didn't seem to think there was any sort of formal motion needed for this, but it is something that was very recently implemented to avoid these discrepancies and people having a lot of confusion when we have one of those things.
All right. Is there any other board business that members of the board need to discuss? See on the agenda, subsequent items for board meetings. I'll just let you look at that at your leisure. I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are
Aye.
Aye.
adjourned.
Stephanie, I had a quick question. I'm hearing from people that they want less bins at Silver Fork. Who do I talk to that, move it from 4 to 3?
Yeah, that would be, I can certainly help to coordinate those communications. It's largely Justin.
Just.
You have,
Yeah.
Beeman is like a, you get to like special services program. This is
All silver pleasure.
part of,
Silver.
okay.
Silver.
So I'm gonna go down from.
4 bins to 3.
Because I think there's a couple recycle ones too.
Yeah, the recycles are fine. It's the trash ones. There's just so many and they only get full.
So, it's certainly worried that they can just so far, there's
Yeah.
more trash to recycle. We can certainly discuss that and that switch.
So my husband wanted me to ask about his price of a trash compactor. I told him we don't want to do it and he wants to.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
If you knew the rest.
so I just, no, it's not at the top of my head, I don't, we could-
I'm calling it.
It's similar.
Yes, I said, I don't want it to be crazy smelly and it always looks bad. So I'd rather just have bins for myself.
Yeah.